PR Connections Radio presents.
Did you know your clothing could help balance your body's pH levels? Our cutting-edge fabric technology naturally promotes optimal pH balance, helping you feel energized, refreshed, and at your best every day. Use promo code PRTalk for more info. Tap the link in the description or contact our experts at 702-445-9488 to learn more.
Hi, welcome. Welcome to another powerful episode of Liberating Menopause, another part of the Women in the Workplace series. So I thank you for joining me here at prconnectionsradio.com. My name is Lisa Vasquez. I am your host. And today the conversation is the silent signals of disability, dignity, workplace evolution. You know, a conversation that's not always loud, it's often invisible. You know, the resilience of women with disabilities. I mean, this is a whole conversation that I honestly don't hear a lot of, talking about women in the workplace and their disabilities, but I do see from McKinsey's global research. It's an institute, and they collect a lot of data from, everywhere on women in corporate world, and they support with tools and different things of that nature. So here's where I get most of my information. And in the past 10 years, the data that was provided was again that women with disabilities are limited in advancements in leadership positions, and from what I see and understand, and why I bring this up today is because it is a silent conversation. And when we were talking burnout in my last conversation, today we're talking like a double burnout, because women in the workplace with disabilities, they really have a lot more challenges. Their quiet resilience of women with disabilities, they are they're twice as likely to say that, setting boundaries, asking for taking time off for mental health, this actually hurts their careers. And this is a collapse because this is not from weakness that they're asking for that. This is for they're being unseen. Because if we're looking at, we generally always speak on a normal condition of a person. And in a normal state, I would think maybe, saying things of setting boundaries about time off, different things like that could actually look like something that would hurt your career more than help you, right? And so, but for disability women in the workplace, this collapse, it isn't always loud. It's often invisible. Women navigating chronic conditions, hormone shifts, neurodivergence often appear functional on the outside, but inside they are managing pain that's dismissed as stress, fatigue that's labeled as laziness, and boundaries that are seen as resistance. And, they are not collapsing because they're weak. They're collapsing because they're unseen by policies which shape our behavior, by metrics which shape our perception, by leadership models that don't account for bio-individuality. Sometimes leadership has an ego of perfection. So what being unseen looks like is no one tracks hormonal burnout. Disability isn't named in DEI strategies, and fewer than 25% of companies include disability. The strategy leading women into self-advocating in silence. I mean, this is an invisible labor that goes unmentioned, and the emotional effects hones the generational and personal weight of women, carrying especially those navigating, uh, caretaking, hormonal shifts, disability. I mean, that is a lot of emotional effects that and women have to mask the pain as they're educating others in, their caregiving or what they're doing. And a function through systemic neglect is never acknowledged, let alone compensated, because a lot of times we have to help guide someone as a senior lead person. We have to give them tips that aren't really in the books or policies. These are just things that were born into us in the workplace, things that we developed for ourselves. The results of brilliant women begin to they begin to doubt their own worth. I mean, this is why brilliant women, they then start to withdraw. They withdraw from burnout. They mostly, and not all, but because they lack strength and because the system lacks sight. They just don't see this. And it's really interesting because they are on the rise of coming more into employment. And these labor changes are something of a call out for a redesign for that structure. Here, it's just really important because what women, when they're not being seen, we're building disability on a compliance scaffolding, something that's just hanging out there. I mean, if we continue to build a workplace in this scaffolding compliance, we will keep watching the collapse of women, brilliant women, under the weight of invisibility. We all deserve dignity, right? Architecture, where we don't just include them because, the building's standing and, they're coming to work. We need to elevate them at the same time by welcoming into a certain stations and ways that are really going to bring more comfort for the workplace for these women. 1 in 4 women with disabilities have lost a lot in being promoted, and one woman, I have to say, I want to read this to you. She says, "I'm often the only person with disabilities in the room and people ignore me. I get overridden all the time. And then later, someone else will repeat my ideas and it will get acted on." Isn't that something? It makes me feel I'm not valued as a person in any way, and I don't feel I can be my true self. This is a Native American and white woman at entry level. So again, this comes from the women's studies from McKinsey's company, McKinsey's Institute, their Global Institute of Research. And this is one of the stories. That another story was, I've seen people with speech disabilities get overlooked for leadership. They might be really good at their jobs, but their feelings that they can't present like a leader because of the way they talk. And so this dignity architecture should be intentional, should be more supportive on these subjects. It should be adaptive. It should be built to last. It should be, at this point, I mean, we didn't just start this industry with having women in disability in the workplace. This is something that has been going on and has not always been made convenient. I mean, certain ramps, certain things that need to be built in. You see commercials, this one guy, he's in his wheelchair and he's trying to get around through traffic, but suddenly, there's no ramp and he can't get up. He can't get in. I have to tell you recently, I don't know, I mean, it's been a live broadcast, but recently a man in Chicago, he's blind and his dog was stolen 2 months ago. And for every day for the last 2 months, he's blind and he's been walking 7 miles, calling this dog's name out. And what he asked the people was if they can help him by being his eyes. I mean, he asked the world pretty much. I mean, Chicagoans everywhere, everywhere there. They started raising money. They created a fund. And with good news and great news, the dog was just recently returned. And I'm really happy to report that. But the whole thing about his blindness, he would walk 7 miles a day, passing out flyers and asking people if they can be his eyes to help him locate his dog. I mean, and everybody came and gravitated to that, and it was very important to see the support, and that was built to last. I mean, this man has his 14-year-old dog, and now they're both comfortable together and supporting each other because this is what they need. But we should really be more centered on the bio-individual and recognize that hormonal shifts, chronic conditions, and sensory needs. I have to talk about those sensory needs because this shapes how we lead and create care, right? And sensory needs like, the lighting. Sometimes those fluorescent lights are too much light. When I was working in this one medical imaging place, there was a room and it was just, it's not a very big room because it's enough in the machine and for you to stand in and the patient come in. There was windows there, which could have brought in a lot of good energy from outside light sources, right? But they had that closed off and had the fluorescent light that's above you. And it was kind of, it would just get me upset because you feel confined and locked in that room, even though you're only going to be in there with that patient for so long. But the energy of that fluorescent light, and I am going to do a big talk on that because we do hate those fluorescent lights, and that does create a lot of negativity. And when I was reading about that, then I understood because I never liked fluorescent lights. I enjoy when you go into a clinic and they have the fluorescent lights up, but they actually have panels of when you lay down on the table and you look up, it's full of flowers, or it has some kind of panel that covers the actual gloom and doom of that fluorescent light and brings out a more relaxing energy. So I have to tell you that sensory, people have, sometimes it could be too loud, but a lot of times it could be the light. And in my case, it was the light. And it was a real bummer because you could have so much more of a rapport with that patient in that room, having the light from outside coming in, that source of energy bringing in, flowing through. And instead, everything was closed off and it just felt so confined. And it really dulls you, especially because, you got 25 patients and you have to keep going into the room. And even though I would try to shut the light up and open that curtain up, no, they would make me close it down. So, but it does affect you. I mean, it could affect a normal person. So again, this double burnout and what happens to a woman with disabilities, I mean, this can really have an effect. And it asks, how do we build a workplace that holds your whole self? I mean, everything about you, not just your productivity. And this is what happens. To see that, again, these women who were speaking about their disabilities, that, they felt lonely, they had ideas, and the ideas were taken by somebody else when it was repeated, and it was worked off of that, but it wasn't worked off of what she suggested. So how do you bring that whole self, not just your productivity? This is a big issue, and the whole self-workplace beyond productivity, the reality of disabled women face, the hormone shifts, the chronic conditions, the double burnout. I mean, there is a double burnout, and boundaries. If they forge boundaries in survival, one body has many gifts. I mean, we're all created with gifts, no matter how we are functioning. And especially with this, when we're in a category of disability, they're functioning what they have to do just to function, the medications they have to be on. And the stress and the medications that they have to go to sleep with, and produce themselves and create the energy of when it's time to go to bed, and have lights off, make sure all the medication has been taken so that they can have a sound sleep and relax themselves. But then what happens when their hormones shift and they have those 3 o'clock in the morning attacks, and they're waking up after they've taken their medication, and it's not something that you can keep doing, and so they have a lot more challenges that we again are not seeing. And so to amplify this, that's what my mission is all about, amplifying all these things that I've seen behind closed doors in women's life, coming from the workplace, coming from home life, coming from just being women. And they all had a story to tell. And this is why coming and stepping out of that closed door, that closed room, that confinement, I mean, it's a mammogram, but it can really shut down a lot of your energy. That's why some women are so nervous, upset sometimes when they come in. They're having hormonal shifts. We don't know that, but they are, so when they come in, they're not happy that they have to fill out this form or do that, or they're waiting, or we're behind with appointments, and all this stuff and energy just starts to build up. One body, many gifts. I mean, we have to remember that, because they are wisdom in action. Could you imagine that? I mean, their responses were born from the body's quiet negotiations, and with pain, fatigue, and fluctuations. And this response born from the body's quiet negotiations can happen to anybody, because disability, not everybody is born with disabilities. People fall into disabilities later on in life, accidentals, just different things that can occur. And the minute the conversation begins that you are a disabled person, that's the end of the conversation. Nobody steps farther in to meet the person and really get to know that person. And see, when I met with all my women, in that room, the hugging, I have to be able to have that special touch, because I am going to engage with nonstop women from all energies, all, different attitudes, mentalities, body compositions, everything. Do you feel like they want to take their gowns off and expose themselves? I mean, there's so much that takes place there. So this response born from the body's quiet negotiation, I had mentioned that when I'm at work and I had to negotiate, because after so many years of doing what I was doing and noticing these effects of what was happening to my body, because I'm always using this one arm to switch the machine, rotate, do this, but that one arm, because I'm a right-handed person, right? So it has to keep going up. So I had to negotiate in silence to stop that pain. I turned to go and use my left hand. So I would practice building strength here, because I really had to preserve this. And those are what we quietly negotiate with ourselves. When a woman says no to overtime, or they don't want to go to a meeting without a break, or they request remote work, she's not being difficult. She's protecting her health, because she knows what she needs, just like any one of us does. I mean, when it's time to go to sleep, naturally and normally, we know that, right? But in a disability situation, they have a different way of approaching how they are going to lay themselves down and go to sleep. But many systems, especially those built on the hustle, culture. Could you imagine those businesses that are getting them in, getting them out? And, that's a lot of what healthcare has turned to. It's turned to a big production line, and it's getting them in, getting them out. And unfortunately, we lost a lot of communication to be in touch with the patients and things like that, because, it's all run by numbers now. And it's a sad fact. And when you come from the years that I started my career back in the 80s, I mean, health care, we cared. And there was a lot of help in this healthcare, and we gave a lot of support. And people had a lot of trust at the time, a lot more until the industry started, cutting down, building little imaging centers, breaking away from the hospital environment, changing everything. This all has an effect. And so people know what they need to protect their health. But many systems, especially, the ones built on that hustle, they don't see that the boundaries are seen. They see it as a lack of ambition. I mean, it's not a lack of ambition. It's inflexibility. They don't want to be flexible, or it's poor team spirit. I do not want to join my team after work and go to games and things like that. And it wasn't because I didn't have team spirit. It's because I've been around them all day. I've been around people all day. I've been helping and giving. And sometimes you give so much that you really have to regroup and recenter yourself to bring that energy back into you. So by going to a game after all of that, I mean, they could have had a very stressful day. You could have had people who really needed a lot of assistance. It just depended what radiology day and what was going on and what department you're working in. And mostly I was in mammography, but sometimes when I would go to radiology, you have bigger challenges there because you have a lot of different conditions and coming in and rolling carts and getting them to emergency rooms and gunshot wounds and all these crazy things that, take place in the medical system. And we have to deal with all of that. And so it wasn't that you don't want to have team spirit, but sometimes, it's that that you need to take care of yourself. And if you don't do it, then, that's how you're going to reflect and look. I mean, that's how you're going to have to look. But deep down that, you wished you could have been at the game. You probably would have had a good time at that game, but you felt better knowing that you were taking care of yourself, because self-care is so important. And this is a big factor that a lot of us lack. We do not have time for self-care. I mean, there's so many women that I work with, talk to, coaches, everybody. And just to have a meditation power hour, it is hard to build into their day. And sometimes it wasn't easy for me to do that, but the discipline, that's what it is. Because if I don't discipline, if I don't take that to sharpen my mind and relax the mind, I mean, just like the body needs exercise and movement to keep going, and nobody sees the inside brain or what it's doing and how it needs to relax, how it needs aromatherapy, or how it needs the sound bowl paths to be opening new paths in their energy flow. There's different ways, flotation baths that you can go lay in pods and just soak to mentally relax the brain. We need to learn how we can do that, because if we don't redesign the way we measure burnout, we don't measure it. I mean, it's never part of the data system on research. What is burnout? Recently, a great big star, he's a really cool guy, and he just actually talked about burnout. So I'm looking forward to discussing that on the male side of things, because he's a man and he came out about his burnout. And today, because my powerful episode is all about women in the workplace, I do bring men into it, and they will be part of this situation because they're all part of this. You all work in corporate. We all work in the hospital and medical systems, and we all need to redesign how we measure and take care of our burnout, the inclusion, leadership. We will keep making mistakes and brilliance for resistance. I mean, it's not. We need to stop resisting and start respecting. When we honor bio-individuality, this acknowledges that women's bodies, brains, and burnout patterns are not one size fits all. They're not. And so to honor that, when we honor bio-individuality, when we stop asking women to prove their worth through pain. Remember, I was talking about I was so sick in one of my other episodes, and I was so sick, but I still had to come to work to prove it. I had to bring my illness and bring whatever virus that at the time they didn't even know what it was, and I was just dying. And I told you my husband was also sick because he got the kiss of death from me. But I had to come to work and show it. I had to prove my worth. I had to show through pain. And we need to start redesigning systems that recognize wisdom in every boundary. I mean, people, and in this day and age, I really believe that a lot of people are really dedicated to their work. They really care. We've grown into a lot more career-minded people instead of just working and just grabbing a job. And not that anything is wrong with that, but because we're so much more career-minded that we need to build more of the trust issue and hope that people are using their benefits, their sick time. And, back in my day, I had personal time, but we don't have that anymore. Nobody gives us personal time. And even to talk about the days that you want to get off, sometimes you have to even explain that. I know traveling, to be able to, you want to take a vacation 3 months from now, and you need to buy the ticket now. And you really have to fight through that leadership to get the permission to buy the ticket ahead of time. And sometimes that becomes challenging. I mean, you don't want to be telling stories that I have to get there. You just want to take vacation, and why can't it just be approved? I want to leave in October. You have 3 months to figure this out for the scheduling. But for right now, can you just approve and let me have the permission to buy the ticket, because I'm having a good price right now, right? But sometimes that doesn't happen, and they prolong giving you the permission to go ahead and do that. And sometimes, it's really hard when leadership does things like that. They don't honor that. We stop asking women, and we need to start redesigning. We just really do. Wisdom in every boundary, brilliance, and in the adaptation and leadership. Silence is mistaken for consent. Did you know that? Because as I told you, liberating menopause, speaking about it, this is why I'm speaking about it, because we don't speak a lot about it. We just started really opening this conversation, I have to say, in the last at least 5 years. And now everybody wants to say menopause. Even I have the program, my business name is the Modern Menopause Consultancy, but now modern menopause is everywhere. Everybody's modern menopause. So now I really have to add a different name tag so that I'm not caught up in this pigeonhole of modern menopause, because I did bring it into modern menopause, but everybody else has modern menopause too. So to find me, you wouldn't, because there's so many. And then it's the Modern Menopause Consultancy. So if you look up Modern Menopause, which everybody just gears toward, they're forgetting the or the consultancy. So it's hard to find me. So I have to be changing my name. So you'll be hearing about that. But the silence of what I'm saying is that, when we don't speak about things, when they come to you and say, so how's it going? How's work doing? How are you feeling here? Oh, I'm good. But you're going through hell. It's painful. You wish that, you had a step stool, or you wish you had a cushion on your chair, or but you don't want to say anything because you don't want to rock the boat. So that silence can mean that exhaustion. It can mean fear of retaliation, right? You don't want that. So it's easier to just say no complaints, no problems, right? Silence is interpreted as an agreement because they're not hearing the truth. There's no disclosures, no disabilities, no resistance, full participation. And this is why silence is mistaken for consent. And this is why it's so important, especially, as I told you, with the hormonal shifts in that global data research. This is data that hasn't even been tapped into yet. So I hope the more that I speak, the more we're going to bring this into the workplace, the more we're going to create. That's my whole goal. My whole mission is to amplify this, bring to the workplace industry, the corporates, the leaderships, bring the information, bring awareness, let the women know that they're being seen, the women in disability situations, everybody needs to be noted and seen, because this misreading allows systems they actually neglect to continue, unchecked. I mean, why are they going to go check up on you if they always hear that it's all okay? And, until one day, maybe you can stop and really say, no, it's not okay. This is happening and this is happening. And, I need to move away from the window. It's too hot sitting there. Or I need my desk to elevate because I'm having a lot of back issues, things like that. By speaking up, by noting that, when you have to call in. I mean, people don't want to talk about, it's menopause and I'm not feeling good. I haven't slept all night. They don't want to show that weakness. They don't want to go through this. And it's not that disabled women aren't speaking. It's that the system isn't listening. And this is a big problem. It's a nuance. The fatigue of quiet resistance. I mean, this is a call to redesign. And how we interpret presence, participation, and power. I did it again. I didn't mean to do that. But let's explore why disability remains one of the least prioritized areas in the workplace. Diversity effects. Despite 1 in 10 working women identify as disabled. And McKinsey reports that women with disabilities are twice as likely to say that setting boundaries or taking time off for mental health has hurt their careers. We are all working out of balance in a system that does not recognize or ignores the biological rhythm of women in cycles. I mean, these are very important issues, and these are things that, burnout is universal. But for women with disabilities, can you imagine? It's not a personal failure. It's a failure of recognition. Women navigating hormonal life cycles often experience amplified burnout symptoms. I mean, if this is just the okay women going through this, you could imagine, and I hope you do, and I hope you see a little bit more compassion, and I hope that this changes the way you view disability and get to know what's really behind, because there's so much more. They have the gift of brilliance. There's so much more in them. They have the power. They have the confidence. They come to work. They do what we do in a normal state, and they strive to thrive through that and get themselves through it. Can you imagine what it is when they get out of work and how their end of day collapses? Women navigating hormonal life cycles often experience amplified burnout, symptoms due to fluctuating estrogen and cortisol. And these two are very powerful hormone levels, and they can really be very destructive. And I was telling you that because in the educational programs and things like that, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress going on there hormonally, and that body rhythm is being disregarded. I told you, because sometimes they don't have room to be able to step away and run when nature calls. They really have to get through their day, and they really have to suck it up, buttercup. And I don't think we should have to be that way. This is not an abstract concept. It is a measurable biological reality. That's what this is. And yet these signals remain. They remain absent from the workplace. And so this untouched data not being acknowledged in the research global. I'm hoping that even McKinsey, a leader in the workplace analytical, has yet to fully integrate hormonal literacy into its framework. Could you imagine? I can't wait to see what that next framework is going to look like. But I'm hoping that this will be on the list and we'll be able to have more answers about that. So the systemic burnout, systems from environments that deplete more than they replenish. And that's what happens. Recently, I'm excited because I've been speaking with, his name is Mr. Stone Payton, and he's from Georgia. He's a businessman, and he recently created an adventure. He takes out a boat, but what he does is he invites the disabled community, and with that, they come onto this boat, and he takes them on a ride into this glorious view, giving them a dose of nature, energizing them with the burst of the air, showing them things. And so when I was working on this project, I wondered what it would look like for a normal woman to be in the center of a whole program of disabled workers. How do we look inside out like that? What would make that look like? And then when I was talking to Mr. Payton, to think that he is that person, but what he does is he actually meets the community. He welcomes them all in. He takes them out there. Can you imagine? He gets to learn and see the other side. But what I look forward when I get to talk to him again is hearing the feeling of understanding the language and seeing that. One lady, my hairdresser, as a matter of fact, I was talking this conversation to her, and she was telling me how she went out of her way to learn sign language because she had a lot of friends who were having hearing problems and speech problems. So to be able to communicate with them, she went to go learn sign language. So when people ask her, why do you know it? I thought, wow, how cool is that they actually went to go reach to be able to communicate and learn that language. And she's young, she's really young. So to hear that, because this isn't just about inclusion, it's about redesigning, it's about dignity, it's about really relating. It's about listening to the body as data and the silence as a signal, and I really hope again that this is going to help change the way this is looking. I hope to shine this light on. Soon we're going to have another cool interview coming up. I'm looking forward to that, because this next pitch that I'm going to talk about on our next podcast episode is where this woman, a neurodivergent woman, she is not just knocking on the doors, she's actually kicking them down. And I can't wait for you to meet her. I was an author with her in my first book, so co-authoring with her, it's just like to really know, her name is Jennifer, and to really know her and understand, she's going to take us into this adventure, but she's going to show that gift of brilliance, and that's going to be exciting, because this data research, as I said, why is this untouched, is because of the traditional metrics. The metrics, the actual perception, it's not being received. The visibility, it's not. And, they track speech, not silence. And we need to measure out and put not the adoption and ignoring this, but we want the invisible labor that disabled women perform daily is what they do daily to perform is just functions in a system that wasn't built for them. And that's what I mean. The power that they bring to the job is just incredible, because a lot of this isn't built for them, and a lot of strategies aren't put in place, and a lot of ramps aren't being built where a wheelchair can get around and get up and do what this person desires to do. I mean, to come into that roadblock and find out that he can't cross the road because they forgot to complete it for him or her is just, it's just not, it just shouldn't be acceptable anymore, because we need to make room for everyone to grow in this world and develop us all, because again, we all are a body full of gifts. That's who we are. And advocating for accommodations, that should already exist. I mean, and it still doesn't. And So masking pain or fatigue, these are things that have to continue until we see a brighter day, or, they have to continue to appear professional. And this is with no structures in place built for them to be in a place that's not built for them. This is the power that we need to be managing this sensory overload, mobility barriers. What I was talking about, that ramp, cognitive streams while performing at full capacity. Could you imagine the focus of what they have to do? We all have to concentrate. We all have to do things, but to do things extra harder because they really want to grasp it and they really want to understand it. And to imagine how their factory is working inside their bodies and how these things are being put together. We have an immune system that goes out and tells us what's happening and makes sure that we're in position and looks out for us and everything like that. But to have overworked immune system because of the medications, because of the stress, the hidden stress, the unseen pain that's going on, all those things is all bombarding the immune system, but yet it still has that focus and it's still protecting them on their external areas around them. And so, but by understanding that they're performing at full capacity and they're not even full capacity. That's the beauty of their brilliance. That's the gift. I think about Helen Keller. All the things that she went through. If you watch the movie and see, she wasn't crazy about learning all these things because, she knew how to function in her own world and she knew that. But now she's being challenged to do things in a normal way. And eventually, she got the challenge. She did it and she went on and mastered so much more through schooling and everything. We would have lost out so much if it wasn't pursued, if it wasn't understood, if her teacher didn't stay with her to really understand and really learn how to teach her and work with her. We couldn't have a better view of how this looks. It's so important. And so by constantly having to prove your pain is real, your boundaries are valid, we often have to explain their needs. And this should just be why they need time off, a quiet space. As I said, some people have sensory to light, some people have sensory to noise. And sometimes, having a flexible schedule, being able to, live their truth and embody the wisdom as strategy. When a woman leads from her lived experience, be it chronic illness, hormonal shifts, or systemic exclusion, she brings a kind of intelligence that isn't taught, but it's earned. Could you imagine that? And that happens to all of us because we all go to a job and we don't really know the job until we get there. We know what we work for and study for and educated for, but when you get there, it does create something different and you have new things being added in, and your decisions are shaped by survival and empathy. Can you imagine that? The adaptation that is not weakness, it's the strategic brilliance, the very adaptedness women are forced to make in silence. And this is something that, I'm hoping, again, is going to really create a change. The seeds of systemic redesigns are being planted right now as I speak, because the innovation isn't always born in boardrooms. It's born in bathrooms. It's born in, if you can run out to your car and just rest your head. It's born in break rooms when you put your head down to relax, and quiet moments of survival. I would go sit in this one hallway. I worked at this one hospital in Chicago, and just to get away, this was a very quiet hallway, but it had windows that, I think there was like 4 flights of stairs because it's like a back hallway stair flight, and the windows were from ceiling to floor. And so, and it was a lot of windows, and I would just sit on those steps, and it would be warm in there because the sun be coming in. And in Chicago, it's freezing out there, but that sun coming through those windows, and I would just sit there and just look out the window and feel that energy. And that was my little small getaway of where I can go hide and protect my peace and have that break moment. And instead of just going to the cafeteria and being around everyone that's there in this hospital environment. So, it's just important to be able to surround yourself with energy that is creating your creativity and not choking you by burnout. We don't want to live like that anymore. And so by bringing this again, I'm hoping that this is going to change a little view on the silent signals, a conversation that I told you is not always loud, it's invisible. And today I want to thank you because my episodes are going to even get better because, again, this next episode, we're going to have someone that's going to come and talk to us and teach us more of the language behind the scenes. Because when you get to know and step in that door of expansion, you're going to see so much brilliance. And there's so many more gifts to be received into you because of what you give to them and what they give back. And this was the whole beauty of my job. And when I would have moments with my multiple sclerosis women, they taught me how to assist them and the confidence that they would come to see me. They'd line up and they would all be waiting because it'd be a special day that we would have just for multiple sclerosis women. They were like, it was like a group, like a membership kind of group where they all belonged to, and they would all come in on that day. But what they taught and the gifts that they brought to me and the opportunities of me helping them get in the positions that they needed for this mammogram and them helping me get the best images that I could possibly get to save lives, because that's what a film does. That's what mammography is all about, getting that picture to create and save lives and protect lives. And that was my whole gift of brilliance from me to them, to you. And today, this is why I'm amplifying that voice to speak for every woman. And I've seen a lot, and it could actually bring me tears because they have given me so much. And thank you, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me. I don't want to get all choked up on you, but until this next episode, I'm looking forward to reshaping this movement, and I'm looking forward to learning more from Mr. Payton so he can teach me more of what that boat ride consists of and how the energy of what he's feeling standing in there. He will be joining me on a podcast also, so looking forward to this. Everyone, you have a great week, and until I get to share another powerful episode of Women in the Workplace, thank you, PRConnectionsRadio.com. Lisa Vasquez coming to you, your host on Liberating Menopause. Take care.
This podcast is brought to you by Envision You. Envision You has discovered how to impact spirit, body, and soul with spray technology in just 30 seconds. With Envision You, you can achieve optimal health and start living the life you have always dreamed of. Use the promo code envisionu.com/VernDix to take control of your health naturally. PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.
Hello.